Welcome back to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Dahya. I'm so grateful that you're here listening and watching this episode. Would love for you to share this episode with your friends, your family, and your workmates. And if you haven't already done so, please follow or subscribe to this podcast so that you don't miss any future episodes and we can get this podcast out to the wider community. Today's guest is Sifu, a master instructor, a founder of Speaking Prowess, blends communication and leadership to unlock your potential. Sifu brings years of experience to the table, guiding clients through their goals with clarity and purpose. Sifu's mission is to take the art of personal and professional communication accessible to everyone. His dedication to his craft is truly inspiring. His goals are clear to enhance communication worldwide. Let's welcome Sifu to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. Hello, Sifu.
Anthony, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great. It's great to have you here today. Sifu, before we go into some questions, I'd love for you to share your journey in life, where you've come from, the highlights in your life, the challenges, how you've got through those challenges, how you got to where you are today, and how do you help people?
Well, thank you for that question. Let's consider where we all came from, right? We came from our parents, but we didn't choose them, right? So I was born in Colombia, South America. I am Colombian. I do speak Spanish. And at the ripe old age of just about 8 years old, my parents brought me to America. And there I'm thinking, no big deal. I'm excited. This is going to be so much fun. Till I got here. No one spoke Spanish. I'm like, what? I don't understand these people. They're talking and I don't get it. They don't get me. And therefore, it was really devastating when you're a young kid and no one can understand you, and yet you don't understand them. And so going to school, my parents didn't even know that I could have taken a bus. So my dad showed me how to get to school. It was probably a little over 2 miles. And so he walked me there, walked me back, and that was the one time I was shown how to get to school. It was up to me to figure it out. And because I didn't know the language, no one in the school at that time spoke Spanish, the teachers or the students. So I was put back into first grade. So communication became a super dilemma, if you will. And when no one can understand you, imagine you're being dropped off somewhere magical, yet the language is gone. You can say things, but they don't understand. So body mechanics actually had to start playing a huge factor. Just a simple thing of, put your hand up. That means stop. Okay, I get that part. And like, oh, I gotta eat. So we start doing all these little different things to associate words with body language. So at that early age, probably even early, I understood that communication was a huge factor, not only in my lives, but even in the lives of the people who couldn't understand me. So going back, I think that's where the true journey started, to try to understand. And the words that we use, what do they imply?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I can relate to that because at the age of 7, I was dropped off. Just like you.
Just like me.
Just like you. At an ashram, a boarding school in India, which was it was an experience of like being in an army and prison camp. And I didn't know anyone, and yet, again, I had to make relationships and get to know people and be able to communicate. Yeah, so I totally relate. Totally relate with you. So your journey has with communication and leadership is inspiring. Could you share what first sparked your passion in these fields?
Well, definitely, even here's the one word that I had trouble with was the. I could not, the simplest thing, I could not say it properly. So there was a teacher who took an interest in me.
Mm,
And thank God for her. I was too young to remember her name, but she was a godsend, if you will. And when you can't communicate, the most important thing that we can do is use our eyes to see how are people doing things. So observation is probably one of the other key elements to becoming better, to see how things are done. So I've become a huge people watcher. I see how people interact with one another. It shows either the way they have empathy, they have leadership. So watching, looking, observing has taught me so much, and I still do it today. So I
mm,
am one of those guys that I can go into a crowd and I am happy. And I could not say a word, but I am happy watching the interactions with people, even if I can't hear them, because
mm.
they are dynamic. So
Yeah.
definitely watching is one of the key ingredients to why and how I lead.
Mm, mm. And these early years where all these experiences shaped your approach with communication and leadership, where were they any influential mentors or pivotal moments in your life that sort of set you on this path?
You know, it's been really interesting because I've had coaches all along. I was very athletic. And let me put it to you this way. When I first learned how to ice skate, quick story, I went on a date. I was very young. I probably shouldn't have been on a date, but it was with a girl and I was super excited. And she wanted to go ice skating. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Can I tell you, I was terrified.
Mm,
And she said, it's okay. I will help you. She took my hand. She walked me around. I still kept falling. I wanted to hold on to the edges. But after that, something triggered inside of me and said, I never want to be in that position again. So then I started going back to the ice skating rink, learning how to skate, watching people more, how they did it. And then I said, well, if I want to even get better at this, then I have to really get good at it. So I started going and I got roller skates. And with my roller skates, I used to then go to the roller skating rink. And from sometimes I would skate on the street and I would skate on the street to the roller skating rink or the ice skating rink. So I was constantly had skates on. And that's by just a simple act of someone being kind enough
mm,
to take an interest to help me, even though I was embarrassed. Right. So I think that that's one of the biggest things that as a leader, we have to accept the fact that we don't know everything, but we should be willing to learn.
absolutely. Yeah. We should be lifelong learners,
Mhm.
that, it's a journey, not a destination, and that we are continually learning. Absolutely. So, what was the initial vision behind Speaking Prowess, and how has it evolved over time?
It it's always been in the back of my mind. And one of the things, like I said, I observe. One of the things that it's a little bit of a gripe for me, if I if you allow me, when I've watched different sports along the way, and when I see they put a microphone in front of an athlete, the athlete doesn't sound like they ever went to school.
Mm,
Their vocabulary is lacking.
mm,
And I always had a gripe with that. I'm like, why? They're so gifted, they're so talented. when they open their mouth, we're seeing a different person. So a lot of times when most of us present ourselves, but then when we open our mouths, what are we still presenting? Who are
Mm,
we presenting? And
mm,
so that's where I said there has to be a better way. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, oh, they're going to get training. They're going to get training. Yet I still see it today. Today, in 2024, I'm still seeing athletes fumbling, not knowing how to speak properly, not having their words match the caliber of their athleticism.
mm,
And that's that pains me every time I see it. And I said, what if I can help people? Not only just, I'm not only thinking athletes, I'm thinking corporations. If, and sometimes I don't watch the news, but in the past, when I was a kid, I used to watch the news and people used to come on and my God, they would fumble as well. And I said, what if, and it was maybe a corporation, a big company. And for me, I was like, should the janitor, if a microphone is put in front of him or her, should they be able to represent that company?
mm,
And the question has always been yes, but can they? And the answer comes back no. So my whole thing is don't allow me just to train your executives. Let me train everybody in the company.
mm,
Pardon, there was a crazy motorcycle flying by. When we consider our brand goes to everyone. If we have somebody who cleans our windows, mops our floors, yet they somehow get in front of the camera, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, and they're representing your company, do you have time to rip them off in front of the camera people and say, let me put this other person in front of you because they are not going to want to talk to them. They're going to want to talk to the person that who maybe they were cleaning, maybe they just walked out of the business and say, hey, you work here. We have some questions. Sure. So for me, communication is a skill that we can practice every day.
mm,
And it's not something that you say once and done. There are people who have graduated college in communication. And I've had conversations with some of these people, and I am floored as to how they speak.
mm,
So for me, it's always about continually practicing the craft. If you're a basketball player and you don't practice free throws, you're not going to be a good basketball player. If you don't practice your dribbling, no good. If you're a quarterback and you don't practice throwing, hello. So if we want to get in front of a client or if we want to pitch someone because we want them to invest in our company and we're not practicing our craft, we're not practicing the pitch, the ask, the questions, we're the only ones to blame
mm,
when they say no.
mm. Yeah,
Communication should be practiced every day, just like showering.
mm, absolutely. And in my 20 to 30 years of working in the corporate world, I've seen this time after time where even the leaders are not
Mm,
good at communicating, you know? And if the leaders aren't communicating and that's not being taught in those organizations, and how can the employees learn to communicate with the leaders?
Imagine that you walk into a five and dime. Some
Mm,
of them are still around, like a bodega, a little store, a family-owned business. And they don't communicate properly. That's that's their own fault. But if you have a corporation and your employees don't communicate properly, it is your
mm,
fault.
mm,
It is your fault. So whoever owns a business, if you're not incorporating communication as a necessary skill, especially when you deal with the public, especially when you deal with the public, because there's so many different ways that we can communicate. We can communicate in person. We can communicate like we are right now. We can communicate through email, text messages, sending somebody a video. For example, sometimes well, not sometimes, but every time when I have a new client come in and they haven't seen me or even spoken to me, but they filled that information on my website, I send them a video. Hey, how are you? This is Sifu Rafael. I'm looking forward to meeting you. This is what you can expect when we see each other, and so on. And that alone is bigger than what most other people are doing.
mm,
Don't get me wrong. I still send them an email. I still text them. And yes, I still call them. So I'm using all the different touch points to make sure that I do have a sale at the end, because they're going to realize, wow, you took the time
mm,
to care about my inquiry. They're not even my client yet. So if they can see that I took the care through communication, and it doesn't matter because I have several businesses, doesn't matter which business they come into, they're going to know that I care.
mm,
So if we can teach that, I can't teach it unless I do it. And I do it.
mm. It's interesting. The thought that came to my mind is that, like, we invest money into our organizations, our businesses, but communication is also an investment, right? We invest in our people through those skills, what I guess they call it soft skills, right? And if we invest in people in those skills, then imagine how they can represent your business, how they can represent your organization, and how successful and professional your organization or business would look. But not only look, but also be. It's
Mm.
about being, right? Yeah.
It's about branding, right? Every large corporation is branded. Amazon branded,
Mm,
Nike branded, um, uh, athletes branded. They have publicists to make sure, don't say that, right?
mm,
That's why they have a publicist. Or you should not do this interview, or you should do this interview.
mm,
When we consider, you and I had a conversation even before you said, sure, Sifu, I'd love to
mm,
have you on the show, and
mm,
vice versa, because you're going to be on my shows, and I do have
mm,
6 shows. And that's why I love getting to know people,
mm.
because it's the people that matter. It's the words they use that makes them something incredible. It's the stories that amplify your life.
Mhm,
That's my takeaway. Think about your story. If you don't tell it to anyone, no one will know about you and how exceptional you are.
mm,
So amplify your life with your story, but make it true, right?
yeah.
If somebody goes looking it up, they're going to find the truth about you.
Mm, mm, absolutely. Yeah. So, Sifu, in your view, what are some of the most common barriers to effective communication, both personally and professionally?
If you recall, that there's a very old movie, 9 to 5. And one of the words in there is the young lady said, why do I need speech lessons? I talk fine. But the whole thing is that we believe we present one way, but we don't ask for clarity. And that's the drawback to every one of us, you and me, and everyone listening, everyone in the world. If we don't ask for someone else's opinion, but we have to be careful, because there's going to be people who are going to give you their opinion because they don't like you. And then there's going to be people who like you and they're going to lie to you because they love you. But we want to say, hey, listen, I'm trying to accomplish this. Please be brutally honest with me if what I'm saying comes across. If I'm doing a sales pitch, can I practice it on you? And if they turn around and go, yes, I'm gonna buy that from you. Great. Okay. It's only $500. And they turn around, they go, oh, that's good. You should do it. Definitely. I say, okay, can you buy it from me? And if they say no, maybe there's something wrong with the pitch. There's something wrong with the product. So you have to have people who are going to be honest and say, oh my goodness, I love that product and I love the way you pitched it to me. I want more than one.
Mm.
So it's the way we ask for clarity. I think that's an important aspect that we forget, that we think we're standing straight. Meanwhile, we're standing a little crooked.
Mm.
I cannot tell you what's in the back of my neck, but you can tell me. You have to look at the back of my neck and see what's back there. But I
Mm.
can't tell you. So therefore, this is why we need coaches. This is why we need people like you and like me and like many others in the world to help us. I have never, ever seen a professional athlete without a coach. Most of them have multiple coaches nowadays. And I've
Mm.
interviewed some of those coaches, and some of them you never hear of because they're mental clarity coaches. They have physical coaches. They have people who teach them yoga, people who teach athletes martial arts, people who teach them how to work out differently, even though it's not the sport they're in, but they're doing something else that enhances their sport. Yet these athletes understand that they cannot perform alone. Yet a boxer steps into that ring alone, but they really did not step into it alone. It was the countless of coaches, people telling him, keep your hands up, left hook, right punch, uppercut, so forth. It's the football player who shows up early and practices. They have a throwing coach. They have an accountability. So all these different things, we need people. Yet people think they can do it. One of the things that I do with a lot of my clients is I will videotape them without them knowing it. Don't get me wrong, I don't do it in a bad way. I I so I will have them do something and I'll just hold my phone like here, and then I'll go, "Can I show you something? You know how you kept saying that you were doing this way, and no matter how many times I told you to do it that way, you you told me yes, and then you went and did it the wrong way.
Mm.
Can I show you this video of you doing it?" And the look on their face is priceless. I only did it because I care.
Mm.
I only did it to show them that I was not lying when I initially spoke to them about this technique, this movement, this posture. And now, what did I do with that? I built their trust that I
Mm.
would not lie to them. And that because in their mind's eye, and I'll even say practice, videotape yourself, and they'll do it, and they'll go, yeah, I look good. I said, great. I said, tell me about this move. Well, I said, does that look right to you? And they'll listen to like, what could you change? What could you do better? But we can do that with an athlete when they're moving, right? Because I also train athletes. When they're moving, but are we doing that with the words we use, with the tone,
Mm.
with the volume, with the listening skills? We don't.
Mm. It's the self-awareness, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Showing, um, sometimes the ego will get in the mind, in the way, but when you become self-aware of what is happening for you, then and as you said, sometimes you need a coach or a mentor or someone that can show you because it needs a new perspective. Yeah, yeah.
Ever
So how,
grow. You need to grow every day.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I tend to put myself into uncomfortable all the time because for me that's where I'm going to grow. And if I stay in my out of my comfort zone into my uncomfortable zone, then I'm just going to grow. You know.
Mm.
And yeah, I totally agree with what you shared just before. Yeah. How how do you help your clients identify or overcome those barriers? And I mean, you've talked about the self-awareness part of it, but what else could you do you do to help your clients?
Practice, without a doubt.
Mm,
They need to practice. They need to practice their pitch. They need to do it in front of different audiences. They need to do it with somebody who um, is going to think that they're rosy and that they do nothing wrong. And they're going to have to do it also in front of people who've never met them before. Maybe go and talk to a stranger and
mm,
get their attention. So sometimes we need to get out of our comfort zone. And in order to improve, how do you get someone to go on a date with you? You don't ask people who 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 know you for 20 years and go, "Hey, you want to get coffee?" They're going to say yes. How do you go and ask someone who you've never met ever, not on a blind date, they're already obligated, right? But somebody that you ran into and say, yes, there could be pickup lines, but not necessarily pickup lines. Maybe it's not asking them for coffee, but maybe asking them for directions. And while you're asking them for directions, you can ask them a different question. You can say, hey, I need to get to this place. Do you know how to get there? And then, by the way, how do you think I look? Because I need to go do a presentation, or I'm going to go on a date and I'm going to meet my date. Would you date me? And all of a sudden they're like, yes or no. What? So it's getting uncomfortable. So you need to be uncomfortable in front of a person. You need to be uncomfortable in front of 5 people, in front of 10, and then keep making more and more and more until you can actually get on a stage and talk to a bunch of strangers. Because when you're on a stage, if you're a public speaker, if you're presenting, if you're pitching, most of these people are speakers. If you're meeting 10 people, you could do a little research and get to know them a little bit. But if you're talking to 500 people, I doubt you may know them all individually, their spouse's name, their pets' names, all these different things, what kind of car they drive, um, what are their dreams like. So now they're all strangers. How do you make them listen to the message that you want them to? Because remember, you and I can be in the same room and listen to a speaker,
Mm.
yet we may get two different messages.
Absolutely.
So it's a great speaker who can narrow it down. And how do a speaker help someone understand and make it memorable? Through
Yeah.
stories.
Mm.
Stories to tie something in.
Mm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've been learning that at Toastmasters. I've been doing Toastmasters for the last 6 months, and or 9 months now, and it's amazing getting in that uncomfortable zone and just delivering a story and a speech, and yeah, it's just growth every time, from growth to growth to growth, strength to strength. Yeah, agree.
Consider this, right? What may be funny to you and me may not be funny to the person that it happened to, right? And I've seen situations like that where something happened to someone. They didn't get hurt. It wasn't like that. But me and the other person that were present, it was three of us, we kind of laughed. It was very funny, but the person could not laugh and they got annoyed because they didn't get hurt, but they were embarrassed.
Mm.
Now, when we both stopped laughing, we went to this person and we consoled them and we apologized later on when we told them that they should not be embarrassed because it could have happened to me easily. It could have been they would have been laughing at me or we could have been laughing at the other person. It just so happened that it happened to them, and it was funny to them only after we shared our feelings with them. Had we only laughed and left the situation, that person may not like us anymore. That person may have an ill taste when even our name came about. But because we assessed the situation, they were able to eventually laugh at it as well. And now they bring it up as a funny story. This is what you're not going to believe what happened to me. Had we not helped them see that, they would never bring it up.
Mm.
They would not be vulnerable enough to have someone else enjoy their experience.
Mm.
So stories can make a difference.
Definitely. Yes, most definitely. Stories also bring out your authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because if it's a personal story, then you've lived it, you've breathed it, and there's nothing to hide. You're, and as I mentioned before, at Toastmasters, I talk about my experiences. I talk about my trauma. I talk about everything, and it connects with people. People feel like they can connect with you. They feel all the emotions of
Mm-hmm.
of what it would have been like
Mm.
being in that scenario.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So your mission is to make communication accessible to everyone. What does accessible communication mean to you, and why is it so essential in today's world?
I was talking to a parent on Thursday, and he told me about his daughter, how he and his wife taught their daughter how to communicate, and she can talk to adults. She's only 5, and she's very well spoken. And he said The problem that his daughter faces on a daily basis is her communication skills are way more advanced than those kids around her. So she became a leader for the kids in her class, to guide them, to speak up for them. Now imagine if all the other kids in her class could communicate better, to be understood. This is why communication is so important, especially for our youth. They don't communicate well, but they could. Think about why people curse. Because it's easy. Those words bring up emotions for other people. And some people may be annoyed with what I'm about to say, but I believe a curse word is just a lack for language. A curse word makes you look less than. My kids have never heard me curse. My kids, they're 20 and 23. My kids will never curse in front of me. And I know that they use the language, but they understand that I need them to use their God-given talent, which is the words, to think about. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset, but use the words that make your communication clear. Because when we use curse words, the clarity leaves. It's confusion can set in. It's also when we use certain endearing words. If somebody says, I love pizza, I love donuts, I love my tires, I love my car, I love my dog, I love my kids, I love my spouse, I love, wow, look at that beautiful sun. I love the sun. I love the bathing suit I'm wearing. All of a sudden, the word love lost its meaning. So we can say, I really like pizza. I really enjoy my car. I love my kids. I love my spouse. I really appreciate my friends. Can you tell another human being, I love you, and they fully feel it? Or do they just hear you say that to the 300 people you just met? So the words, do we put emphasis on certain words and not on others? Do we, when we curse, usually people don't curse in a low volume. They may say something under their breath because they're mad. But when they're cursing at another human being, their volume goes up. It means what? To me, it means they lost control. And that's what anger can do to people. They lose control. I rather communicate in a controlled manner. And I encourage more people, especially anyone listening, if cursing is something that you don't think about, but you use it, maybe it's time that we start to think about those words.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, words have a lot of power,
Mm-hmm.
and they also bring words come to life because we're sowing those words as seeds into the soil. And it's important how we communicate, how we share those words with others. And I've been I've used a curse word when someone's cut me off while I'm driving,
Mm,
and it happened yesterday actually. And I went, oh, I t- I became aware of what I'd done, and I said, "I'm sorry,"
mm.
and I said, "I bless you," because I don't know what the day was, what was going on in their life.
It's beautiful that you did that and you were aware of it. Don't get me wrong, when I was a kid, and this is what kids do, they follow what their peers are doing. If somebody's cursing, I'm going to curse louder, right? So yeah, of course I curse, but when I realize that I speak to people, how do I want them to perceive me? I stopped cursing a long time ago. And if I ever say a word that sounds like could be a curse, I'll say, I'm sorry, just spoke some French. So, and then they laugh. They're like, no, that was nothing. That was a silly word. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I don't even want to use that word. And I say, pardon my French, right? And I'm not putting French people down, just so we all know. It's just a saying that I went through.
Mm,
I believe that every language and every ethnicity, everyone in the world would benefit from communicating better. And it doesn't matter what your mother tongue is or what your adapted or adopted, if you will, tongue becomes. Right? Because I grew up speaking Spanish. I'm speaking to you in English. You are also speaking to me in English. You adopted this language, but can we adopt the language of true humanity? That's where we have empathy for one another. That's the language, that's the communication that I'm really going after. Can we truly use the word love for our brothers and sisters? Because to me, you're like my brother, right? And I know we barely know each other, but why should we treat each other any worse than we would treat our own family member, our
mm,
own loved one? We shouldn't. So the communication of love we lack. That's why I want to help everyone from children to adults. Doesn't matter the age. Doesn't matter
mm,
if you're into college for communication. Are you using the skills every day? Are you practicing? Are you dribbling? Are you shooting? Are you batting? Are you practicing? So many masters out there, yet they haven't practiced to that. If
mm,
I claim to be a master, then I must practice. And I
mm.
practice daily. Otherwise, I should not be considered a master of anything.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Sifu, how can leaders create environments where open communication thrives?
It starts with them.
Mm,
They have to be willing to say, hey, we're going to do something different. We're going to bring in a communication coach, or we're going to all, and give it to them for free. You're asking them to be better. You're asking them to make you more money, yet you keep putting them down. You don't give them the tools to make you, as the business owner, more money. Can you imagine you go and become a janitor somewhere and you go, okay, I'm here for my first day of work. You want me to clean this? Yes, sure. Where are the tools so I can clean? Where are the rags? Where's the brushes? Oh, there are none. How do you want me to? Oh, we just have one rag. And you want me to clean this? There's no vacuum. There's no duster. There's nothing. There's no Windex. There's nothing. But you don't want to give me the tools. but yet you expect me to make this place shine. How can I do that? I go and become a mechanic. I work in, I have my tools. A lot of mechanics have to carry their own tools. Yeah, but you show up and they have a different technology. They need to work on a certain car, yet they don't have the technology there or that machine because the machine is it wouldn't even fit in your car in your tool belt, but you need this particular machine and you can't service it without it, yet they don't have the machine. Or they have the machine, but yet no one knows how to use it. Hello?
Mm, mm,
We have people employed in our business, but we don't have them selling for us consistently. We talk about brand, but we don't put our brand on every one of our employees.
mm,
Consider as a leader bringing someone like myself to come and train not just your top level, but it may be a different course for them, but maybe a course for everybody in the lower level. Because for business to function, you need all levels. You can't just have one level, right? To be part of a tribe, to be part of an organization, you need hierarchy. Because if you're in a business meeting, you cannot be cleaning the toilets in between business meetings. But someone needs to clean the toilets. And that person may be walking down the aisle, down the hallway, and someone is coming to a meeting and they don't know what room to go to, where to go, and they speak to that person, and that person can't communicate.
mm,
You already failed your business. Everyone in your team, everyone in your organization needs the right skills to make you more successful. Everyone.
mm.
And I do travel.
Sifu, what are some of the, how do you balance authenticity and clarity in a professional setting?
We do have to put barriers. We do have to put certain aspects to our personal life off limits. We do have to show up like the same way that we talk to our children with caring when we talk to our employees. If we're only conversing because, hey, I need you to change that tire over there and get to it, hurry up, you're too slow, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, that person is not going to want to work for you anymore. But if you go, Timmy, thank you for coming into work today. I really appreciate you being here. Today, our goal is to change the tires for today. And tomorrow we can work on these other things. Or this is our goals for today. So having a meeting with your team, understanding that this is the clear action path that we want to take, or this is what we hired you to do. Is there anything else that you need so your job is performed the way it needs to be? How can I assist you? How can I be of help? Or who do you need to talk to so that you get the assistance that you need, so that you have the energy? When we invest in a stock, because we want to add to our portfolio. We forget that our employees are also a stock. We have to invest in them. We have to talk to them properly. We have to, hey, listen, they're going to get hungry during the day. Do they have to run out and go fend for their own food? Or could you provide food for them at a discount? Could you even provide snacks, free coffee, so they don't have to go running, looking all over the place for a cup of coffee? And it's not dirty coffee, it's top of the line stuff. I know I do that for my employees. They know I have cupboards. They go and they open whenever they need a snack or anything like that. Yes, water is available to them, coffee, tea, creamer, whatever, because they matter. When they come in, I don't go, just get to work. Go. How's everything? How's your weekend? What are your goals for this week? How's everything going? We need to take care as a leader. Right there, I've been talking to you about communication, but are we doing it as business owners?
Yeah.
Listen, if I own a liquor store, if I own a shoe store, if I own a grocery store, anything, and I have 2, 3 employees, when they come in, do I make them feel comfortable? Do I make them feel valued? Or do I say, hey, just get to work because I'm paying you? Guess what? That's why people have theft at work. People take things. Home Depot understands that there's a certain percentage of money they're going to lose every year, every month, not just because their employees are stealing from them. And I'm not saying they are, but they know that human beings are going to go in the store and steal things. They allocate a certain amount of money from their profits to know that we're going to have a loss. They put things in place. They talk to the employees so there's less theft going on by the employees. They treat the employees right. But we can't stop human beings from doing the wrong thing. But if we encourage them to do the right thing and we treat them right, 99% of the time, they're going to do the right thing and they're going to want to work for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Because when you're feeling like you're being looked after, you're being appreciated, you will do whatever it takes, go the extra mile, and you're not likely to steal from your employer because your employer's already looking after you. Absolutely. And as you said before about the clarity, often I feel that leaders will say something expecting the employee to understand what it means. And as we talked about before, if you're delivering a speech, people who listen to that speech will have different interpretations of it. So it's so important that you clearly communicate so that people understand, because there's a saying when I started my coaching world that the map is not the territory. Everyone's map is different. You give everyone a map, the way they perceive that map will be different from the next person beside them. And so it's so important to clearly articulate and communicate with your employees and your family, your spouse, your kids, so that they understand what it is that you're asking them or communicating to them. Yeah.
I love the fact that you talked about a map, because think about GPS. GPS tells you make a left, make a right, go straight. In 2 miles, you're going to turn, right? Somebody recently told me they went on a 6-hour trip. It should have been 5. They had the GPS, but the person driving at one point or another decided, I know the way. And the GPS was telling them, don't go that way because there's traffic up ahead. There's this, there's that. But we sometimes think we know everything. And when someone is shooting us a red flag, or it doesn't matter the color of the flag, don't go that way. We still do because we're creatures of habit, yet we lack the understanding that clarity will guide us best.
Mm,
The GPS can see further than you can. It knows 2 miles ahead. It already knows your route. It knows that there's traffic coming. It can even tell you nowadays if there's an accident. It's incredible. Could you do that with your blind eye? And I know we're seeing, but I call it blind because we can only see so far. After that, we're blinded. So I love the fact that you brought up maps. Thank you for sharing that.
mm. It's also, you know, when you're driving, you can't see around the corner,
Mm-mm,
but what you focus on is what's right in front of you.
that's true.
Yeah, and you have faith that the corner around the corner is going to be okay. And you know, I've what you said before. I've done that before, where I've gone, actually, no, I want to go down this route, and I've come to the point where I've gone, okay, now I understand why I was trying to take me the other way.
So you got the scenic route.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, Sifu, what is your legacy that you hope to leave through your work in the communication and leadership space?
I think that legacy is the stories that I'm able to share.
Mm,
It's the way I made people feel. It's the way I helped change their lives, the way I helped them make more money, the way I helped them acquire new relationships. It's the connections that I help people make. It's the connections I made with them. And this is why I have 6 shows. I talk to people literally all over the world. I'm talking to you, and you're not in New York, are you? I'm
no,
in New York.
I'm in New Zealand.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
So therefore, you and I are connected, but we could not have had this moment together if either one of us didn't reach out. And once we reached out, we said, we want to get to know each other.
Mm,
And my legacy is that if I can help you in any way, you will tell people about it. And then there will be stories about me that people will hear. Stories that I may even be put in books, not by my own doing, but because I've changed someone else's life because of my actions.
mm, totally, totally. And what you said about not being in the same city,
Mm,
I think I may have said this when we had a discovery call, which was, I'm in your future, you're in my past, but yet
mm,
we're both in the present moment.
that's right.
And
Love it.
isn't it amazing that we can communicate in this present moment, yet you're in my yesterday, I'm in your tomorrow.
Mm,
Mm,
pretty incredible.
mm. So, Sifu, we are now at the point of this interview where I'm going to ask you 5 quick fire questions. You can choose to answer that in a word or a short sentence. The first question is, how do you define success, and has that definition changed for you over time?
Every day I wake up, I'm grateful. Gratitude is part of my success, and I improve every day, even if it's a tiny little bit. To me, that's success.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I do exactly the same thing. Who's been your greatest inspiration and why?
As a human, you're looking at them, me, because I need to inspire me every day. I look in the mirror and I have to love me. And yes, I pray every morning. I pray to God. Yet I am still my own human inspiration. Because without me, I couldn't do what I do. Don't get me wrong, there have been so many people that have guided me and helped me. Without them, I wouldn't be who I am, but I have to be me first before they can even mold me. So everyone, whether they've been positive or negative in my life, have molded me.
Mm, yep. What is something that you believe that others may disagree with?
God,
Mm. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
keep going.
Mm. And what is the one last message that you would love to share with the world?
You're beautiful. Your words define you. Learn how to use them proper.
Mm. Absolutely. Sifu, it's been a pleasure having you on this podcast interview. If people have been listening to this or watching this episode and they are inspired and they want to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Sure. You can definitely look me up on LinkedIn, Sifu Rafael. If you go to Facebook, I'm there too, Sifu Rafael G. And if you really want to reach out and maybe you need to bring me to your country or your state or wherever so I can give you some more guidance, either to you or your organization, my email is sifu at speakingprowess.com. Really simple.
Great. We'll put those links into the podcast description so people can
Appreciate it.
click on those. Thank you so much, Sifu, for joining us today. As I said before, it's been a pleasure, and I'm so grateful and so um, grateful for you being here today.
Pleasure has
If
been
you've
all
been listening
mine.
to this
Thank you.
podcast, yeah, if you've been listening to this podcast episode and you've been inspired or you'd love to reach out to Sifu, please do so, or myself. And if you haven't already done so, please share this episode with someone who may benefit from hearing this. And also remember to subscribe and to follow this podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And I just want to say, you are loved, you are worthy, champion your life, champion your greatness. Have an amazing day.